I'd like to say good evening to everyone.
Good evening.
It's good to see all of you out this evening, and just so much going on around us. So much sickness, and so many of them. I know Sandra was saying she had been sick, and along with a lot of others. But we are in Revelations chapter 14. Revelations chapter 14. And as we prepare, and what we've studied about the beast the last time, and how that is a counterfeit of the Godhead, but we're going to change it another scene tonight. As John is recording what he is seeing, he starts off with something new. Kind of changes a little bit here. And he talks about the Lamb and tonight, and we're starting to see, as he is preparing to pour out his judgment upon the wicked of the world. And he says, "And I looked, and lo, a Lamb stood on the Mount Zion." Now, Mount Zion is where the temple in Jerusalem stood. So when you see this mentioning of the Mount Zion, of course, we already know that it has been destroyed and was rebuilt again and destroyed once again. Right after Jesus' death, it was destroyed and overtaken by the Romans, and they tore it down. And there's so much prophecy in the Bible about the end times, and it talks about the New Jerusalem. And we'll see here later as we see it coming down and other things. So we see them preparing. Even today, they say they are prepared to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem, God's temple. Also, we will see where the Antichrist will set up his temple and stuff on that. But it says here, "And he looked, and lo, a Lamb stood on the Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written in their foreheads." Of course, we had just studied where the mark of the beast will be upon the foreheads or the hands of those that follows after him. So we see a representative here, but we also saw it a few chapters back of the 144,000 as well, that was coming, and how they looked for the judgment to come, and ask how long will they have to suffer. But you see him coming here, and he says, with the 144, with those written, that was the followers after Christ who did not take the mark of the beast. But it goes on and says, "And I heard a voice from heaven, as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of great thunder. And I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harps." So we see the scene here of the Lamb that stood upon the Mount Zion and those that was around him, and we heard the voices from heaven. And it's hard to try to imagine or even think of what those voices would sound like. The harpers were harping and making the music and the singing that was coming out, the voice of a great thunder coming out from heaven. It kind of makes you wonder what they were singing, doesn't it? Well, let's see here. "And they sung, as it were, a new song before the throne, and before the four beasts and the elders, and no man could learn that song, but the 144,000, which were redeemed from the earth." Now, this 144,000 is singing. Can you imagine the voice of 144,000 people singing. I'll tell you what, this church sometimes, and it's something I've done it a few times, when you got a church full of people here and they start singing all together, it is sometimes really nice just to sit up here in the front and listen to the voices. You pick out individual voices, then you can hear them all singing together, and what a lovely sound it has. I couldn't even imagine what 144,000 singing all together in beautiful harmony, singing praises unto God. What a sound that must be.
That was the first fruits of Israel that come to believe in Jesus Christ. They didn't believe it. They didn't know it.
Yes, and that's what they get into. It's the first fruit here, and we see that here in the next verse. He said, "For these are they which were not defiled with woman, for they are virgins." Now, I've read a couple of different commentaries that I have when I'm doing my studying. One of them says that the virgin here may refer to the men as being virgins, or it may mean that they were virgins spiritually, which means that they did not follow after the beast or the Satan or the Antichrist or any of those, and remain true to the Lord. I don't know which it is. Different commentaries had different things.
It says with women.
It says with women. So they may have been unmarried ones. Some of the priests, even in the Levites' time, that was dedicated the first fruit, the firstborn of the families, dedicated the firstborn son to the priesthood, and some of those remained unmarried because there was a particular sect, and I can't remember the name of it right now, but they remained true. They were the firstborn of the Levites that was dedicated into the priest. You remember we read of Samuel, how his mother had him and dedicated him to the Lord and took him to the temple to live and work for God. That is what some of the Levites did, the women. They brought their firstborn sons and dedicated them, so they remained unmarried. And one of the commentators believed that it may be that sect that is 144,000 that remained unmarried and dedicated their lives and stayed true to the Lord.
But it says that they followed him.
Yes, and they followed him.
Yeah, followed him. Might have headed.
These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruit unto God and to the Lamb. Of course, the Lamb is Christ. We all know that. So these 144 seem to fit that meaning. They were true men that followed after the Lamb. Wherever he went, they did the work that needed to be done and dedicated their lives to that work. He says, "And in their mouth was found no guile, for they are without fault before the throne of God." Without guile means that they had no bitterness, no deceit, nothing within them, any falsehoods is the translation for guile. Remember when Jesus stood before his accusers, and it says that he had no guile in his mouth. He did not fight back. He did not try to contradict or counter what they were saying about it. He knew that was his job. He knew what he had come here to do, and he accepted it willingly. I sometimes find that very hard, I know, and when somebody attacks me, I instantly want to attack back. It's hard to imagine someone who just took it willingly. But apparently, do what? Go ahead.
Put something in here for you to study and think about. You don't have to get into it tonight. Over in Romans, Paul was writing, right to find it again, there it is. "And so all Israel shall be saved." as it is written, there shall come out of Zion a deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. Now, this is all Israel. I'd just like to know,
When's that going to happen?
I mean, they go all the way back into all Abraham all the way through, or is that?
Nah, yeah, I don't know.
I want you to study that as a study point. I just wonder what that all means.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting question to ask when we get there, won't it?
Well, I might not need the answer.
May not need the answer.
No, may not need it now, but I'd like to know.
Yeah, that's.
Here's now this is my thought. People think maybe it's stupid. But if all Israel is saved, that means Iscariot. Was he not a Jew?
He was a Jew, yes.
I think that could be possible.
I have no idea.
That's up to God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought about that. And I tell you, it's not the first time. I've thought about this a lot back through the years.
Yep. And in his mouth was no guile of these 144,000. He says, and I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth. Now, what's the gospel? Now, we say that the gospel is the good news of Jesus Christ, but he's talking about an everlasting gospel here that's going to be preached. The good news here, I believe, is that Christ is the winner. He's going to get ready to pour out his judgment and judge those that are the wicked, and he's already won. I just wonder if this good news is that Christ is won and the beast is already judged and he doesn't even know it. Preach the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth. Now these were going to be the ones, I believe, that is still on the earth. I'm wondering when he's preaching this everlasting gospel, if that's an opportunity for those Jews to repent and come in, John. Could very well be. And to every nation and kindred and tongue and people. Who's that going to leave out that's left here? I don't believe that's going to leave anybody that's left here. I believe that if you study this, the church has already been raptured out of it. We're not going to be here, those that believe, but there's going to be some that's still going to be here to hear this. So he has here something that he's going to be preaching, and this angel is coming out to tell all this.
So this was not the same commandment he gave to the apostles, go preach all the way.
No, I don't think so.
I mean, I know what you're saying.
I don't think it is. I think the commandment that the apostles had was to go out and preach, and that was But I think that period may have ended here by this point. I think this is where the church is probably already, the knowledge that I have from looking, the church has already been called out by this, the last here of this period here that they're going into. It sounds like this is out just to those that are still remaining. But boy, isn't it interesting. But I find it interesting here what he's saying here. What is the word that he's saying with a loud voice? Fear the Lord and give glory to him. Look at that. Fear the Lord and give glory to him. Now, I find it pretty interesting. Those that have left that have been worshiping the beast, I believe is getting ready to get their punishment but the whole world is commanded here to fear and to worship. Now that's some pretty good stuff. That is a positive side of it. But there's also some negative in here. We have a positive side to focus about the redeemed of Christ coming into his kingdom. And I think that's very good. Those that may have been converted or taken care of during this time, but it says I think there's also a negative part of it here as we read on and says, give glory for the hour of his judgment. Now that's a negative side of it. You see what it says? Saying with a loud voice, fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. Folks, to suffer through his hour of judgment and not receiving Christ.
Now this is an angel, right?
This is an angel that it says has come out. Isn't that something? Declaring the time of judgment has come. And worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the foundations of waters. He is worthy of it. But even at this time, of all the things that's happened that we have studied, all of these last several chapters over the last several weeks that we have studied, of all of the signs and the wonders, but there are still those who have refused to worship him.
I'm not sure any of them did.
I don't know. Through this tribulation, 7 years of tribulation, this is right at the end of that 7 years of tribulation, and it doesn't sound like that too many of them has it? It says, and there followed another angel, saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of wrath of her fornications. Of course, Babylon is representative of a great nation. We know that they overtook the kingdom of Judah, that was the kingdom there, and caused them to be swept away. And they're known for their power, and they represent, I believe, a powerful nation. Now, by this time, Babylon has fallen at this time of Jesus' time, but still yet it represents this influence can still be reached even up to this at the time of Jesus' time. But Babylon has fallen, and those are the judgment of the ones to come. And as we go on here to look a little further, that this angel come out, the second angel came out talking about the great nation has fallen. I've heard other teachers, and I have listened to them talk about that Babylon would represent any great nation in the time. It could maybe even represent the United States. In the time of the tribulation happened, the great nation may be the U.S. at that point. I don't know that I can argue for or against that in any way.
Well, I know in the beginning, everything was based upon the Word of God. Mm-hmm. Their government, the presidents, the leaders, they went to God in prayer. They prayed. Mm-hmm. And you look as time went on where we are today.
Oh, yeah.
They don't even, most places don't found in there.
I heard a historian talking about this the other day in a little. I listen to a lot of the stuff while I'm sitting at my desk working. Some of it I pay attention to, some of it I don't. But I heard this one historian says that any great empire that has ever been on the face of the earth, the maximum that they would survive is about 250 years. Any great kingdom, if anything you want to go back to, any of them, Romans, any of them, because the Greeks, all of them disappeared somewhere around 200 to 250 years after they come to power. Guess where we're at?
Right there.
We as a nation, we are right there. And that's what they're saying. And all of those nations all imploded from the inside. Not hardly any of them was taken over, but they may have been taken over after they weakened themselves. I think that's happening within our own. We're seeing how one side fights against the other. Neighbors can't get along with neighbors. Family can't get along with family. All of that imploding is happening from on the inside.
Didn't we study, was it last chapter, about the Antichrist?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of rule would the Antichrist have if he had all these high powers?
Yeah.
These powers have got to go down.
They do.
They got to go down.
Well, and it talked about it when we studied last time. If you studied it, and it said the great beast when it come up had crowns. What was it? Was it 6 crowns he had?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the 6 crowns, and some of the things I read said it represented 6 nations. Crowns represents power. So there's probably 6 countries, is what a lot of them are saying, that will probably come together and all together give up their crown and their power into the beast or the Antichrist when it comes. Because the Antichrist is going to be a military type leader or a governmental type leader that's going to try to form and bring all the countries together under one, and that will probably be 6 countries that will give up. So these countries has to go down so that he can come up. He said, and there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city. That's one I just read. And a third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast in his image and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God. Boy, that don't sound very good, does it? Will drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented. Now, this is what gets me here. We can read in the Gospels and other things where Jesus talks about hell and other scriptures, and somebody talks about how well you can go and it may burn up, it may disappear, or there may not be fire. Read what this right here talks about, God's punishment. And they shall be tormented with fire and brimstones in the presence of holy angels, in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of the torments ascended up forever and ever. That don't sound like me like it's going to end, does it? And they had no rest day or night who worshiped the beast in his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. It don't sound like me like it's going to be anything quickly and over with and be done. Even it says it's going to be done in the presence of the angels. I think that, and that's something that I know John has brought up several times. I think when I read that presence of the angel, I thought of what John says. You're probably going to be reminded of every opportunity you had to accept Christ, and you turned it down. The presence of the angels, I believe, will bring that remembrance to your mind. Don't you think that that's a strong possibility?
Worm.
The worm? Yeah.
Worm died, not yet. It's something that it just pesters you all the time. And I think that's what it's partly is, I think.
The wrath, the wine of the wrath of God poured out without mixture. That means he's not going to hold back in it. It's going to be pure. It's going to be all upon you.
That's like without mercy, isn't it?
Pretty much. And that's what it seems to me. Full strength. He's not going to water it down, is he?
Well, does everybody have a worm?
No, I believe what that's referring to. He's when Jesus is describing hell, he says it is where the worm dieth not. And what it means is, and I believe that refers to the point that when you go to hell, there's some people that believe that you're just going to be burned up in an instant and it'll be over with. The worm that's in hell is not being burned up. So it's going to stay there forever and ever.
Neither will the soul of man either.
Neither so will the soul of man be.
I just kind of
The fire's never quenched.
as something to keep your spiritual mind in mind of the opportunity that you have, a possibility.
Could very well be. And the torment with fire and brimstone. That's two different things.
Yeah.
In the presence of the holy angels.
When the brimstone is a lot hotter.
Brimstone's a little more solid than what the fire is. And the smoke of their torments ascended up forever and ever.
And no rest.
And no rest, day or night. Oh my goodness. Who worship the beast in his image. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that kept the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. And I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, Write, blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth. He said the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, and their works do follow them.
There's works.
Works do follow them. Folks, if you don't think it's important to do the work that the Lord has laid before you, it says it here that your works will follow you. I do believe that He is a rewarder of them that does His will. I believe the Bible says that. I believe it also says there is laid up crowns. One is the crown of righteousness, and other crowns that is presented for the works that you do. And I believe that that is true. And he says here that this is, to write it out, that this is what is waiting for those who are the saints. Who's the saints?
Saved people.
The saved people. The saved people are the saints of Christ. Isn't that something to think about? See the contrast of the wicked and the reward of the saints. That their rest from their labors and their works do follow them. He says, And I looked, and behold, a white cloud. And upon the cloud one sat likened unto the Son of Man. How did it, when he ascended up into heaven, what did the angel say how he would return? In like manner, be carried up on the cloud. Here we have the Son of Man coming back on a cloud, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. Now, a sickle is what you use to harvest with. They harvest grapes that we get into here in just a little bit, but this is not the good grapes. When you harvest something, you get what's ready. He said, And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to them that sat on the cloud, Thrust in thy sickle and reap, for the time has come for thee to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe.
Did that refer to Armageddon?
Very well could be that the beginning of the Battle of Armageddon. That's exactly what one of the commentators that I read said. This may actually be what is left on the earth at this point in time is the wicked that needs judgment. And he's going to harvest that is wicked and start pouring out. And we'll see right here in just a minute where that next chapter, actually, where he starts pouring out his vials. And we may try to do 15 and 16 together. They kind of go together. But he is talking about the angel came out and cried for him to strike with the sickle and to harvest the earth, because it is just full of wicked. The Antichrist has been set up. All of the beast and and the great dragon all have ruled the earth and has taken it all under. They've taken the mark of the beast, and the wicked has just grown to the point. 16, and he that sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped. And another angel cried out of the temple which is in the heaven, he also having a sharp sickle. Another angel came out of the temple having and another angel came out from the altar, which had power over fire, and cried with a loud cry to him that had the sharp sickle, saying, thrust in thy sharp sickle, and gather the clusters of vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. Now they used the visions of grapes here because that is something that the people of the time understood. Maybe something totally different if they was writing for us today, which this is still being wrote for us, but we can see the imagery of the grapes being ready to pick, being full, and this is, of course, the evil that is upon the earth. And the angel thrust in his sickle into the earth and gathered the vine of the earth and cast it into a great winepress of the wrath of God. The winepress was the wrath of God that smashed the grapes, or smashed. God's judgment is going to crush the evil that is in this earth. And the winepress was trodden without the city, and blood came out of the winepress, even into the horse bridle, by the space of 1,600 furlongs. Now,
175 pounds.
My Bible here says 106,000 furlongs is approximately 184 miles, which is the length of Palestine. Palestine is where they think, of course, is the enemy of the Jewish people right now. Palestine is the one, of course, that is fighting against them, and we see that. But it is 184 miles long. The height of a bridle is about 4 feet deep. Can you imagine the blood flowing for 184 miles, 4 feet deep?
A lot of people.
That'd be a lot of people. The winepress may be, and
I read somewhere where it said it'd be either China or Russia. That many people.
could very well be. Well, now we'll get into here in not too long in a chapter when we talked about Babylon has fallen. We'll get into that a little bit. It brings that out into more detail in some coming chapters. But we'll also see, we had the seven trumpets that blowed, and next we're going to be hearing from the seven vials of God's judgment that opens up.
Yeah, the sinners is the one that needs this revelation teaching, but how many of them listen, hear it?
I don't know. That's a good question. Run that by me again.
I can't. The sinners is the ones that needs to be listening to revelation, but how many of them is hearing?
I don't know that a whole lot of them is hearing it because they don't want to hear the Word of God. The world out there, and
if I knew I wasn't going to heaven and all that stuff, it scares me, even though I know I'm not going to be here when that stuff happens.
it is. It's a pretty scary situation when you think of our families. Yeah, the families and loved ones we have that hasn't accepted Christ.
Yeah.
That's why it is so important, folks. It is so important for us to pray earnestly for our lost loved ones before it's too late, because we've already seen here recently the death that's been all around us and in our community, and I'm afraid there's some more coming, of how important it is to be ready to be truly ready. And I also believe, Bobby, that there are people that are sitting in churches today that are not saved, that may be thinking that they are.
I do too. They use it as a club or something.
I do believe
Social.
there is a lot of them that uses it as maybe gain notoriety
Yeah.
for themselves. And I'm praying and hoping that they were at least listening to this as well when someone preaches and teaches it. Hopefully they're hearing it in their churches. I don't believe all churches are going to tell people this.
No, they don't want to.
So maybe when it happens, if they're still here, maybe they'll recognize and remember somebody telling them.
I just wonder how many churches out there that don't even study the book of Revelation.
I know there are some. I know there are some that does not study the book of Revelations. Because some of them thinks it's too hard. I have never used a study guide for Revelations. I have used for some of the Gospels. I like to read them sometime. And I have the IT guy that we have going work for us. He's a good Christian guy, and he had a study book on Revelation one time, and he told me he was going to bring and give it to me, and I never did have him to do it, but he said that if you get into some of the study and stuff, and this is where it brings in, and I'm going through it actually pretty fast, and some of the commentaries and stuff I read, they bring in a lot of the Old Testament into it, Job and Jeremiah and Isaiah and all these that predict all of this stuff. If you really looked at how even way back then, how they predicted what in Revelation, and how Revelations even being written by John, you can see so much of it being predicted thousands of years before John ever wrote it.
Oh, Daniel wanted to.
Yeah, he told him not to, didn't he? But anyway,
Up to your day.
hopefully you got something out of this tonight.